All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this is Travon. This is our inaugural episode. We're still not even sure what we're going to call this, but this is my friend Travon. And we have been 2 years now, almost 2 years we've known each other.
Yeah.
And we're both in the coaching industry and felt like it was time we started having some conversations on camera because we have incredible conversations about the things we're going through, the things we're struggling with, our industries, and the things our clients are going through. And we wanted to start sharing them with the world. So that's what we're here to do today. So my name's Allie Stone. I am the founder of The Inspired Leader. And so what I do is I help entrepreneurs, startups, leaders, people with teams. I help them build the career of their dreams. And I'm really passionate about leadership and, this kind of idea of people first, people forward leadership. I love people and I love working with people. So that's a little bit of what I do in a nutshell. So Travon, do you want to introduce yourself and let the viewers know who you are?
Yeah. I'm Travon Pendarvis, owner and founder of Desired Wellness, where I am a massage therapist and a wellness coach. And I help professionals, gain the confidence and courage to live the life they desire. And I'm really passionate about that because a lot of people tend to start living their life based on what they're being told or what they've learned in school versus living what they actually want to do and realizing that they have the power to do that if they just remove those roadblocks. So I'm always loving to engage with my clients and seeing that light bulb go off and like, oh, wait, that's possible. I can do that. Like, I just have to say yes. All right. Let's go for it. So that's me.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing? I love that moment. I'm just submitting for my ACC. I didn't tell you this. So I submit for my ACC which is level 1 of ICF coaching certification. And I submit on September 28th. And so I had to record a session. Mm-hmm. And in the session that I recorded with my client, she came to this epiphany at the end. And it's so funny because we're like in these conversations all the time. And then when I got to listen to it again, I was like, whoa, that was so cool. And she walked away and she was so just inspired to go handle, the agenda she brought to the table or whatever. But I thought it was just so neat to be able to hear it. And I was so uncomfortable about recording like a coaching call. Like I was like, I don't want to do this. And then when I got to listen to it, it was crazy. So yeah. Something to think about. So I thought today that we had a few topics on the table, but then we had a little chat before we started recording. And I think we're both on the same page with a few things right now. And I thought today we could talk a little bit about motivation versus setbacks, because I think we both are personally experiencing them in different ways. We probably see our clients experiencing them. And I think it's something that it's just part of life, right? We're continually going through this kind of journey of like moving forward and then having, some sort of challenge that we need to face, figuring out how to get through that and just how to navigate like this experience. And I think for me personally, I've had a lot of setbacks lately, personally. So I lost my dog, which was the worst ever. I had to put my dog down after 16 and a half years. And it was like, I knew it was going to be hard, but like shattered my heart. And I didn't recover. And I remember I texted you and I was like, I'm not doing so good. Like, I'm not pulling out of this. And it's almost been a month and I'm not there yet. This setback has actually kept me kind of slow and not really able to respond in the way I want to life. But then I'm just trying to be kind to myself. So, I feel like I'm giving that advice out a lot, but maybe not taking my own advice, which is what as coaches, we all need to be better at.
Right. Definitely.
But what do you think when, setbacks come into your life? Like, how do you handle them and what do you do to kind of navigate them for yourself?
Ooh, the it's always interesting because sometimes the setbacks um, can be something small, right? And it's, oh, I got a flat tire on my way to work, or um, I had this coworker, lie about me or something, and it's just something small. You're able to muster up, whatever you need to get through it. But when that setback is something that is world changing, that makes it even more difficult to handle. And so trying to face that setback, I feel like you start with honesty. Because a lot of times if you downplay the significance of that setback or your emotions tied into that setback, right? Because sometimes we can overlook, wow, I'm actually upset, I'm really sad, or I'm depressed, or angry. We'll try to hide
Or
those things.
talk ourselves out of it
Yeah.
too. Like
Yeah.
that's the thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you fine.
Totally talk ourselves out of it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We talk ourselves out. It was like, that didn't really happen. That, and almost kind of like a denial thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, just like you, I had some really big setbacks that happened this year. One being the loss of my infant niece. She had only made it on this planet for 18 days earlier this year. And that took a lot out of me, a lot more than I expected. And I mourned her like crazy, and nothing really seemed like it mattered in the grand scheme of things anymore. And when you lose that idea of, things don't matter, you don't have the motivation to do anything, to keep moving, to keep walking. And so when you're facing that setback, the first part, like I mentioned, is the honesty. And so instead of denying those feelings or not letting them play out, it's like you have to feel it. You have to allow yourself to feel it, as hard as it is. Giving yourself that time allows that emotion, that feeling to run its course. Because one thing that almost happens by, I don't know if I could word it this way, osmosis, is that if you continue to live, you're constantly being reminded that it's not the end of the world, even though it felt like it in that moment. The world's still going, people are still working, which almost frustrates you because life is still going. And you're like, this is something that should have stopped everything, but it's still going. So
doesn't it feel like you're living in an alternate universe when that happens?
yes.
Like, yeah. You're in like an alternate reality. And like I see clients there too. And that is such a hard place to be because, like you said, the world is just like buzzing around you. And the world actually expects you to like pop back in line.
Right.
Right. But it's not that easy.
Right. So it's a lot to navigate all those different feelings of, people not giving you the space, you not giving yourself your own space to deal, and then finding a way to kind of get back in line, whether you feel like you're being forced to because of responsibilities that you have to take, or if you're fortunate enough to be able to make that choice to get back into line. That would definitely be the next step. Is okay, now that I've felt it, now that I've been honest and I know my feelings, how do I get moving again? And so that kind of starts the process of allowing that setback to be a positive. And it's weird to say because setbacks are usually things that we deem as negative, but negative and positive are always perspective things. Something can still be positive even though it hurts, even though it frustrated you or made you sad. If you can learn from it, gain insight, perspective, that's how we start to turn it into something positive and something that works for us, spurs us into something new. The loss of life can cause someone to live life more,
Mhm.
instead of just surviving or just being there in this existence, right? All I do is work, and I go to sleep and I work, and I'm just passively going through.
Yeah, just
Um,
going through the motions, right?
mhm,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think that I thought this when you lost your niece too, and you told me this story. I was really reminded like of the fragility of it all. And I left
Yes.
that conversation with you that day, and I was like, I don't know how I feel. Like I feel really sad for you, but I also feel motivated to like, yeah, go out and pay attention to my minutes today
Right.
because that's very intense, right? Like
Mhm.
that's a really hard situation to go through.
Yes. Um, and just kind of thinking of that with one of my clients. She had a big loss in her life, and it was kind of the idea of that fragility. Like you almost equate that to, well, why? Like, why do I even need to? Because everything can just blow up, you know. And so why bother? Can start to come up. Um, and that's, obviously something that needs to be addressed, because the why bother will keep you in a dark place and kind of
Mm.
sink you a little bit further into those dark feelings. But looking at that fragility, you can make a choice of saying, well, I know things can blow up at any moment, but do I want to have the choice of giving it my all and trying to make the most out of it, so that I have little to no regrets because I tried, I gave it my all? Or do I just take it, and when the things blow up, I'm already feeling in a bad place, so that I knew they're going to blow up anyway, so I'm just going to feel even more beat down and downtrodden. There's definitely a the former that helps you along with that.
That's really impactful what you're saying. And so I don't know if I've ever told you this, but I have a program in the Inspired Leader called Life by Design. And it's essentially like a life planning program, but it's all about getting in touch with your feelings and making sure that your feelings are what guide you through your life to the end. And so, I do this exercise at the start of it where we look at it's like a visualization where we look at like you imagine yourself like in the rocking chair at the end of life. Right. And so you
Yeah.
sit back and you say, and so a lot of people do the funeral visualization, but I don't like that because you're already dead.
Right. Right.
I'm like, what am I going to think when I'm dead? Right. So I kind of like shifted this and I made it so I'm 90. I'm like little old lady sitting in my rocking chair with my blanket and my purple hair. It'll still be purple.
I was just thinking that in my head. You're like literally.
But as I sit in that rocking chair and reflect on my life, what moments struck me, like, and just kind of go through that. Like, what were the happy moments? What were the hard moments? What were the challenges? What were the setbacks? What did I learn from them? And how did all that make me feel? And then I kind of get them to write down these feelings or these like desired ways to feel. And then the life plan is built on that. And it's so impactful for people because we don't really do that.
Right.
We do it fleeting, right? I did it after the call with you and, you hear stories and you're like, oh, okay, but then it kind of goes away.
Right.
But when you spend like half a day doing that, you're in a totally different place when you walk away from it. So it's super important to I think about these things in our life, find guides and coaches and people who can help you with stuff like this. Cause
Definitely.
you were just saying like, I always think of the Dolly Parton song 9 to 5,
Mm-hmm.
like a lot of people are like 9 to 5 grind
Yes.
and
Yes.
that's life. Right.
Yeah.
And there's so much more to it than that if we pay attention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that checking in is huge. Because when you're checked out, everything's just very passive, mundane. But checking in, because we're also, I think, for the most part in our society, we almost look negatively on feelings,
Mm.
right? Stop being so emotional. Stop, doing all these things, especially more so for women.
Yeah.
But then guys are told that they aren't allowed to be emotional at all. So then they're just like
Yeah.
and I gotta toughen up and keep it all in. And a lot of the times like you said, when we're using our feelings as a compass, we actually can find our way and navigate our way through life
Yeah.
versus life navigating it for us. Our circumstances being the driver of our life. So
Really.
yeah, it's very, very powerful when you can tap into that.
I've been saying a lot that our feelings are indicators. So when we ignore our feelings, we're ignoring what our mind and our heart and life is trying to share with us. So when we try to stuff that down or pretend like it's not happening, we're not paying attention to the reality that exists around us and where we need to go with that. Right. So, yeah, I'm all about embracing feelings. Put my dog down. You can't get me off the floor. So my husband's like, okay. I can laugh about it now, but it wasn't pretty.
Oh, I'm sure. It never is. If there was like a fly on the wall with holding a little camera,
Oh my God,
those
you don't even
moments
want
are really ugly. So,
So what do you think about let's talk about motivation for a few minutes too, because we're talking about kind of these setbacks, but how do we, what kind of advice can we offer to people about, working through these setbacks and finding that motivation again, or maybe staying motivated? Do you have ideas around that? Yourself personally or clients? I mean, anything.
Yeah. So one thing that I personally, I'll start with me and then a client. The thing that is keeping me motivated is that check-in, because sometimes when you are just in survival mode, which a lot of times if a setback is huge, all you're doing is surviving.
Yeah.
So getting out of survival mode to figure out what what you've deemed as truly important, because that might have changed with the setback, what's truly important to you, and then starting to align with that. Because that insight that you have at that moment will allow you to have actions more aligned with your feelings and your spirit. So then that motivation comes through a whole lot more easily than the oh, well, there's this thing that's either going to get me more money or get me this material thing, and it's not really tied to anything like resourceful inside of you.
Mm-hmm.
And for a client of mine, hers is a routine, a routine that kind of checked in with herself. She was able to develop it after we talked about it, and she kind of went through the different things that she felt was true to herself and a recognition of her habits, good and the bad ones. So made a routine built to steer her in the ones that were more productive for her. And so having that routine allowed her to, when she's highly motivated, be able to blast through it. When she's not motivated, there's still a plan. And she can kind of go through it to stay on track, because obviously motivation comes and goes depending on how we feel. But when we've set ourselves a plan that is aligned with where we want to be, who we want to be, we can kind of stay on course with that.
Mm-hmm. I'm a super visual person. I don't know if I've ever done this to you before, but I always have a vision, and it's steadying the ship in the rocky water, right? When you have this, when you have a plan of how, and I would almost call it self-care routine, of how you're going to care for yourself. But I have an interesting thing for you. So I'd like to hear what you think about this, because this kind of blew my mind. So I meditate every single day. So I wake up, I have to let my dog, I still have one dog, I have to let him out. But then I meditate, I visualize, I journal, and I have a gratitude practice. So I have an hour in the morning before I do anything. And it's my self-care.
Yeah.
But after I lost the dog, I couldn't do it. So I sat down to do it the next day, and I was so emotional. And then I almost had this like minor trauma of doing it, and I didn't want to go back to it. But it was interesting because I was like really worried because I had been doing it for so long and I knew it was really good for me. And I know it had put me in really good places.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I knew I was just going through this shift and I knew I would get back to it.
Mm-hmm.
But there was something inside me being like, what if you don't? What if you never meditate again? And obviously I've gotten back to it now, but I'm still not super consistent. I'm still having days where I'm like, I wake up and I'm emotional. Like this dog literally sat on my lap and meditated with me. So like there's a lot of triggers there too, but it's like, just knowing that I had created that routine, even though I couldn't do it in the moment, felt okay to me. But I think that some people could be really hard on themselves about that too.
Yes. And I agree with you there. It's kind of a lot of these, ideas or things that we can give out I feel like they're always a double-edged sword, because you can use them for good, but then they could be a reminder to send you spiraling in the other direction, right? If you don't give yourself enough grace, which grace needs to be tied right in there with motivation, definitely, because if there are triggers that, in your routine, that you are trying to protect yourself from because you're still in survival mode, you got to have grace to recognize that's what it is, and to be patient with yourself. Continue to try, I'm going to try to do these things. I'm going to try to move on. But if I can't take that step today, it's okay. As long as I'm breathing and I can still move, then there's another opportunity in an hour, a couple hours the next day, there's still an opportunity to try and do it again. So that grace is huge, to couple in with that motivation.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the word I usually use is compassion, but I really like that you're using grace. I think it can be a misunderstood word. And it's like when used in the context you're using it in, it's actually such a beautiful way to think about how we can be with ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you have any final thoughts you think we should leave the listeners with today, the viewers?
Let's see. So, obviously we all know that in life you're going to have setbacks and triumphs, and you're on this roller coaster that's going to be back and forth. And the old me would have said to try and be even keel. Don't get too high on the highs, don't get too low on the lows. You stay even keel. That was a defense mechanism, a protection of not feeling the lows, but it also denied me from feeling the highs. So my thought now would be to allow yourself to feel the highs, feel the lows, and have protections that are built around, well, if I'm really low, what routine, what priorities do I need to set forth in order to maintain myself through that while I'm being gracious for the thing that has brought me low. And then that can allow you to feel really, really good when things are good, and to not feel guilty that things feel good. Just because some things aren't, maybe your best friend's not going through some harsh things, or a family member that you love is going through some harsh things, you would simultaneously be able to feel good while also feeling it for them. So feel those things, make sure you're aligned. And a lot of times you'll be on the right side of things.
Totally.
That's my thing. And how about you?
I'm with you. Like, yeah. I think the more we can be in touch with our emotions, the more emotionally intelligent we are. We can't know and understand our emotions if we don't ever touch them or try to work with them, right? And like I said, I think for me, like I would hope the takeaway today would be like, they're indicators, right? So
Yes.
don't ignore them. They're there for a reason. They're not there just to piss you off.
Yes.
Although it might feel like that sometimes, you know,
Yes.
they're there to help guide you through your life.
Yeah.
And, you know, we both kind of shared stories of loss today and grief. You know, we didn't even use the word grief, but like grief is
Definitely.
part of one of those really hard feelings.
Mhm.
But I've been doing a lot of reflecting on it. And I think you might have even said this to me, but grief is like the evidence of love. And it's
Yes.
the evidence of a life well lived. And while it might be really hard to touch and be with, if you remember that, it just makes it all the more meaningful that you're going through it, because you know you're living your life, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that there's a lot of love there,
Yeah.
because the loss of love is going to be painful. If you
No
don't
matter
have it,
what.
then you're not going to feel anything. So that's a powerful sentiment there.
Yeah. Amazing. This was so fun. I can't wait to do
It
it
was fun.
again.
Oh yeah, we're definitely